Meguru Bachira, known as the protagonist Isagi's proper first ally. His first appearance was both in chapter 1 of the manga and episode 1 of the anime. Teases one of the characters we will be seeing very shortly in this opening pan around the room, full of 299 fellow strikers. As we transitioned over to our first ever face-to-face encounter with Bachira, he at first displayed this lower energy and relaxed personality as we see him openly sleeping on the floor. People left him be as he dreamt about playing football with a player called Zico. For those who don't know who Zico is, he's practically a football legend, a retired football player and coach from Brazil who played as a midfielder, known for his incredible playmaking and free kicks. As Ego stated, the room full of strikers had to play tag in order to decide the first person to leave BLUELOCK. Bachira was still sound asleep until he was approached by the current Igaguri, acting on instinct when becoming awake, socking Igaguri in the face with his foot. Whilst at this point in the series we didn't know that this guy would be a mainstay, he definitely stood out with his whole initial demeanor flipping to favor a different dominant personality, where his energy became spontaneous and impulsive. We see this especially when Bachira starts holding on to Kunigami to make him an easy target to get tagged out by the now Isagi. But he gets thrown off and lands onto Igaguri, once again injuring the player further. Isagi has decided to not get the practically free shot off on Igaguri and instead favouring to eliminate a better player to prove himself, so he decided to go after Bachira, which instantly gained Bachira's respect towards Isagi, agreeing with his mindset and then stealing the ball from his possession to rambunctiously aim to eliminate the top player in the room, Kira, and almost kicked his head in whilst at it. This whole character seemed very interesting with the personality and mood flips when things are beginning to get active, but that's not all Bachira is about. Kira begins to clear himself away from Bachira, so Bachira decides to pass the ball with only a few seconds left on the clock. Kira believed himself to be completely safe, however, the ball landed in front of Isagi. 3, 2, Isagi kicks the passed ball directly into Kira's face. 1, the ball dropped completely to the floor, then the timer finally hit 0. This was our first ever glimpse into what the character of Meguru Bachira holds for the series through this display of risk and belief, as if he knew this would be the outcome and the reason why he can move forward. Ego praised Isagi and Bachira's efforts, favouring their risk as it was an element of egoism that he's looking for out of this project. Isagi wanted to blame the situation primarily on Bachira since he felt guilty for being the one to eliminate Kira. Bachira responded in a playful manner, showing that he had faith in Isagi, which had some deeper roots of reasoning to it that we'll see in just a moment. Fast forward and Isagi cannot get to sleep from all that's happened in his first day of BLUELOCK. He decides to rush out the room and get himself more practice as he wants to improve and keep up with his teammates. Bachira was also up at this time and offered Isagi to practice with him in a one-on-one. With this opportunity to talk to Bachira, Isagi pressed Bachira to answer why he believed Isagi would kick the ball to eliminate Kira instead of Isagi just leaving the ball alone. Bachira then announces this anomaly that there's a monster lurking within him. It only comes out when he is playing football, giving Bachira instructions on how he should play, proclaiming that he passed because the monster told him that there was a monster inside Isagi as well. In the anime, they showed a more exclusive backstory that actually is presented later on in the manga to how the monster conceptually is an expectation, a display of excitement and desire. Bachira in this flashback was accused of selfishly ball hogging because no one could keep up with the expectations and results of his monster, which in turn made his teammates turn his back on him, isolating him with only his monster as his only football friend. This was an interesting approach on a character, and during the first time watching the anime, it made me personally believe that everyone in a way had these monsters within them. I just ended up believing that Isagi's monster wasn't fully developed just yet, and in a way, that was actually true, but not as literal as Bachira's variant. Then he government name drops 2 footballers and a small YouTuber for some reason, stating that all of these people have monsters inside them, a perspective in which he only believes in as this was Bachira's own interpretation of ego. He only knew his own way throughout the time playing football due to being isolated, so he was uneducated in how different egos manifested or took form, as Bachira's ego clearly stems from some sort of schizophrenia. Isagi, as he's not yet realized his own ego, was inspired by Bachira's path. He wanted to find out what his own monster was. Bachira gave Isagi the courage to keep going no matter how far back he is in terms of skill currently. There was more for him to learn and more for him to improve on, and Bachira gave him a glimpse of what he needs to do to prepare himself for the future that BLUELOCK holds. However, their practice gets cut short by the announcement of the new new rankings, so they should head back to their rooms. Ego announces the beginning of the first selection alongside how it works and the intentional bait that the majority of us fell for. Skipping ahead, we get onto chapter 5, which coincidentally is also the first chapter within the new release volume of the Blue Lock manga that now has Bachira on the cover. This cover had 2 designs. Anyway, it's decided with a game of rock paper scissors that Isagi will play as the forward for Team Z's first match, with Bachira playing as support for him. Their opponents step onto the pitch shortly after they do, and once everything is prepared, the kickoff can now commence. Bachira had this constant willingness to work with Isagi due to Isagi's own passion and desire. Even when the tides of the game completely shift when everyone seeks to steal the ball for themselves, Bachira stayed aligned to Isagi throughout it all. Team Z are guaranteed to lose, but even with a loss as inevitable as this one, Bachira still has the determination to score at least 1 goal, and once again leaves the task to score fully up to Isagi. It's clear Bachira wants to see what Isagi is capable of, even when the odds are so heavily stacked against them. Their bond as allies was already strong due to the mutual understanding of the situation being much more that they can handle individually. Bachira baits in the defenders and passes upfield to the running Isagi. Isagi controls it and finds himself one-on-one with the goalie, but it would not be so simple. Team X's ace Burū was now the biggest obstacle, and as we know, Isagi made an unconscious move to pass to Kunigami. Peering onto Bachira, we sort of see this slight showing of surprise mixed with a bit of disappointment, but he needed to understand Isagi a bit more before he can decide his expectations on his first ever football partner. During the aftermath meeting, whilst people were piling on Isagi, Kunigami and Bachira stepped up to defend him. Even if Bachira did it in the oddest presentation, he's showing his loyalty through a bad situation, acknowledging Isagi did help to get a goal for the team. Isagi then said some stuff that made Ego appear. Ego talks about weapons in football that allow people to obtain goals and for everyone to demonstrate their talents to be good at the video game. Bachira's weapon is of course his dribbling, in which he states in a discussion before promptly going to snoozies. It's fun to discuss Bachira's dribbling because it's purely based off his own innovation and creativity, but it's also influenced by his monster. His ideas were limited to the options that his monster would give him, as his monster was his subconscious reminder of his own expectations, but we'll cover that more later on. Skipping ahead, Team Z are facing up against Team Y. A strategy has been inputted to best accommodate for the team's egos, so everyone gets a chance at being a forward. The start has Bachira as the lead, and he instantly starts to showcase his skills. He was too much for even 2 defenders to stop, so a wild Nico has to retrieve the ball. Bachira has to repeatedly make passes back to reform the attack again and again, so it seems individually Bachira was quite restricted. His efforts were deeming to be quite futile, so he sadly had his use cut short and needed to tag in the next rotating lead of the game, Kunigami. Even with this change of forward, it seemed completely useless, as soon as Team Y got their chance at the ball, they instantly took it to score, with the utilization of Nico and Akawa's efforts. Team Z were then being stalled out until the moment Bachira knew Isagi had a change of approach. Bachira made his corner, and the look on Isagi's eyes returned, and now Bachira was intrigued once more. This made Bachira realize he can offer Isagi another opportunity to see if he has what it takes, all leading to a 1-1 tie until the vital counter of Isagi, stealing from the fingertips of Team Y before they can even score, pursuing a counter push. Kunigami obtained the ball and made a pass to Bachira. Bachira was able to see beyond the likely predictable goal of Gargamaru when passing from the wing. Only Bachira and Isagi could see the reality where Isagi's ego burns bright. Isagi, with an assist from Bachira, scores the winning goal for Team Z, with an emphasis on Isagi and Bachira's teamwork being the reason why they won. A possible chemical reaction already had been complete before the concept was even introduced. In chapter 14, we get a look at characters and some small descriptions of what they're like. Bachira is stated to be a whimsical forward who plays following his instincts and whose weapon is dribbling. He also has a particularly keen interest of Isagi. Aw, they're gay. Then we see this panel and okay, we get it, you're gay! Anyway, there is an unfortunate lack of attention on Bachira for the next few chapters as the focus of the manga goes to Isagi and Chigiri for their match against Team W. The most notable thing Bachira did during this game was getting another assist by passing to Kuon. So skipping ahead to our next Bachira moment, we see this cute panel displaying the schedule of Team Z with Isagi or Kuon tasked to wake up Bachira in the morning when he oversleeps at the end of chapter 22. Chapter 23. Ilmon is now leading the discussion of Team Z with the recent betrayal of Kuon fresh and sore. They have to win the next game at all costs or their entire team gets the boot besides the top goal scorer at the time, which was Kuon. Bachira points out how a certain someone seemed to inspire Nico to play forward and score his own goals, hinting towards Isagi in that comment to display the influence Isagi Isagi has on everyone around him. Chapter 26. Before the match against Team V, Bachira approaches Isagi. With the game deciding the future of the team, he harnesses a level of concern if they lose. Losing would mean that he wouldn't get to play football together with Isagi ever again. The stakes at this time felt so much more tense for everyone on the team, and even the carefree Bachira finds the situation to be dire. In this match, we once again can see how Bachira's skills in dribbling are essential to the lineup of Team Z. Not to mention, Bachira's passes have been one of the most useful components in the team's attacking formation. Being the only player to consistently deliver passes up the field to ensure his teammates have a chance to score, it almost seemed like he wasn't being utilised to his fullest, playing in a supportive role. Well, until we see.
Then the only way we'll score against these guys is if we can surpass our own individual limits. You can't hear him, but the monster inside me is speaking. In a desperate situation, don't be frightened, because that's when things get exciting.
He's right. Left, wait!
An aerolostico? Hey, it worked. There's no end to my inspiration.
My bad. He's headed your way.
I'm almost. If we crap out against Team B now, it's as good as admitting that's all we're worth. 3 more?
Bachira, you're incredible. Smiling even now just because you love the game. You're totally right. If this is it, the last game of my entire soccer career, I'm not holding back.
2, 1.
I can wallow in despair if we lose. In order to win, I must.
Baby! Bona, that was sick! You see? I got a super special goal of my own. Your turn. If this isn't fun, then what is?
He is much more than what we believe, much more than we know. He is Meguru Bachira, ready to pave the way for Team Z's eventual victory in this game. Utilizing his determination, he was the tipping point of this entire match. Back and forward exchanges occurred, but what started it all was the goal of Bachira. The undefeated Team V struggle was against the worst team in the facility, because Bachira was the catalyst to everyone's evolution, and yes, even Isagi.
Is to win with my goal! My goal.
That's right, Isagi. Remember. Remember your goal.
There it is. I can see it again.
How pointless.
I got so caught up thinking about how to trap the ball. I failed to realize it was that mindset that made my future self a nobody. Well, screw that! I know who I am. I have no speed, no power, no special technique, but I found the thing that will let me survive at BLUELOCK. The thing I've been looking for, the final piece. It's not enough to simply see the future. I have to keep them from catching up to it. With this, my direct shot! Found it. My formula for scoring. Yeah! It's my turn! This is the moment of Yoichi Isagi's awakening!
To undervalue Bachira is to undervalue more than just him. Without Bachira, Isagi would have never grown to the player that he is today, and it all stems back to the faith that Bachira had in Isagi, the potential he saw, the monster he foreseen within Isagi Yoichi. This sounds like an outro, but we have more to cover. So if you're enjoying this video so far and would like to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. Next week I'll be releasing a video in which I've made the original script for over a year ago, way before I started this channel. So stay tuned for that video because I promise it'll be worth the wait. After the final match against Team V, every player who was passed either by the top 2 advancing teams or as the top goal scorer had been requested to all enter into one empty room, revealing that Ego had planned to have every player who had gone to BLUELOCK to be placed on teams V to Z in order to play as if they're striving to beat the best players. A classic case of draggable character mentality. When you have a goal in mind like a certain character you seek to surpass, you unconsciously consciously train harder, comparing yourself to your target as you go, and therefore your growth rate in skill climbs at a rapid rate. But that skill climb is also based on potential, so don't take my words too literally. So in short, you're not looking at the average egoist anymore. Blah 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 stuff about second selection, let's skip ahead. The 100 goal challenge is done both by Isagi and Bachira, and of course they decide to instantly team up. Or well, Bachira just automatically assume that they're teaming, which also works. And now they wait for a third to join their team so they can move on to the next stage of the second selection. Isagi already thought about teaming up with either Chigiri or Kunigami, so it came down to whoever made it through first. But then an unexpected sequence unfolded. Nagi approached Isagi with the offer to have Isagi join him and Reo, a tempting offer to consider as these two were the top players of their facility, but Isagi immediately declined to stay beside Bachira, a showcase in loyalty to each other, rooting much deeper than mere common football interests. Nagi decides to renegotiate as he was interested in playing with Isagi, so he requested to join Isagi and Bachira, instead making the one episode iconic trio. Isagi accepts this new offer and they go off, leaving Leo to wallow in his newfound alone place. Bachira remarks their team to be the strongest, and I mean, wouldn't you? The seemingly unstoppable goal-scoring ability of Nagi, the creative and innovative playmaking of Bachira, and the recently awakened Isagi Yoichi. Well, until it was revealed, the room that they entered in also contained the top 3 players from the 100 goal challenge. Isagi, Bachira and Nagi, playing into the cruel hands of optimism, or rather ignorance, challenges the top 3 players. Bachira during this match managed to form a chemical reaction with Nagi, however it was deemed pointless in the end, as our main cast lost 5-2. In an interesting switch of expectations however, Bachira was the one to be chosen by the winning team, therefore leaving Isagi and Nagi as a team of 2. Bachira before leaving recites how saddened he is by the prospect of being separated from our main protagonist, but that he wouldn't dwindle his competitive stride. If Isagi wanted him back, he's gonna have to steal him, but until then, he will follow the will of his own inner demons. Without Bachira around, Isagi and Nagi are suffering the repercussions of lacking an individual who can deliver passes that they would need in order to capitalize on goal-scoring opportunities. Neither of them have talents to carry them to the goal on their own, so Bachira and Reo would be a vital asset for them to have, but they now go without that privilege. During this time, we have smaller moments featuring Bachira and his team struggling to find opponents due to the level of clout they hold, whereas Bachira believes Isagi's eventual return is imminent for a rematch. Bachira and Rin also have a one-on-one in which helps the development of their character traits. It also makes me think of how it's a parallel to Isagi and Bachira's first time properly interacting, which makes sense as Rin at this point of the story embodied what Isagi sought to achieve in terms of playmaking and skill. It's as if Bachira was drawn close to those with immense amounts of potential and football IQ. The one-on-one was completely favoured towards Rin as his level of skill far exceeded the instinctual plays of Bachira, in which never gave Rin any sense of thrill. Following chapter 69, we finally reached the backstory of Meguru Bachira. Chapter 70, Dancing Boy. Bachira as a kid was united with the present, and what else could it be other than a football? Upon being given such a gift, he would go out of his way to play with it throughout the day constantly, seemingly having quite the knack for the sport even when being so young, having the potential and talent for dribbling. Playing against kids his age, he was just simply too good, leading to those around him being unmotivated to continue as any kid would give up upon losing, which was the original spawn of the soon-to-be reoccurring outcastment of Bachira. The other kids judge him for being so tunnel visioned on the sport that to them was only a temporary game, being referred to as weird, which is a polite way of saying autistic. Upon being called weird, Bachira pelts the name caller in the face with his foot, which led to him being jumped by the other 2 kids and subsequently beat up. We cut to a scene where Bachira's mum is applying some first aid to Bachira's recent scrap injuries, ensuring Bachira that he isn't weird, but how fighting was not the way to disagree with someone who doesn't quite have the same feelings as you do. Bachira responds asking what he should do about it then, as playing football is way more fun than playing something like video games. She responds that he should keep believing in that. When people become adults, they're automatically prone to stop believing and accepting realistic circumstances. Even when they don't want to stop believing, society enforces that standard, and whilst pretending to not hear it, they're additionally unable to listen to their own inner voice. Belief is a constant fleeting feeling within our world, but one that is deemed so precious in life. Bachira's mum then reveals an ominous painting, stating that the voice is the voice of the monster within every everyone's hearts, and how she listened to it and it led her to where she is today. To summarize in a less confusing manner, Bachira's mum is referring to our belief in our own ambition, our wants and our dreams. Naturally, as we all grow up, we come to realize what we once dreamt of is not as realistic as we thought in this world, and through burying those dreams in which you once had as a child, you simultaneously silence the inner voice within your heart. The monster of Bachira is much more of an exclusive ego influenced by the words of his mother. He had found his own interpretation of his inner voice, and it was called to him whenever he played football, the influence he needed to keep believing in what he deemed to be fun. With how literal this monster is in terms of visual depiction, Bachira also interprets that everyone in a way has their own monster, but that seems to be way too literal, as the monster is a representation of his ego. Therefore, the word monster when talking about others is referring to their extremely strong ego. Upon Bachira joining football teams as he grew up, he was given that same shtick that Isagi was given, the whole one for all and all for one mentality. But the way Bachira perceived his teammates was with disappointment in their lack of egos. No one could keep up with his monster, no one had the ego to match his own inspiration. The only people he believed to be true monsters were the professional football players he saw on TV. This way of thinking resulted in Bachira becoming even more of an outcast to the rest of the world. He kept believing, but no one he knew ever understood him, so the more he grown, the more he accepted the fate of forever playing football alone. However, the fruits of his labour had paid off, being invited to BLUELOCK, and because of this, he never stopped believing in the monster inside his heart. Chapter 71. Friend. Bachira kept playing with his imaginary ideal monster as he carries his loneliness in not finding a human partner to play with. He had decided to head to BLUELOCK, but a recollection of his past memories surfaced. Bachira asked his mum regarding the idea of an imaginary friend, and whilst his mother can provide an answer to what it is, Bachira wanted a real friend to play football with. This revisit of an old memory was all a dream, the exact dream he had when he first arrived in BLUELOCK. It all came full circle. The prospect that if even here couldn't provide Bachira a player on par with the monster, he would once again feel so alone he could die. But he had found his monster player, his first real football friend, and that's why he believes in Isagi Yoichi. We cut back to the present. Upon reflection, Bachira questions Rin regarding if he had a monster. Rin responds clueless and regards it as childish nonsense. From Bachira's viewpoint, he sees Rin to have a monster he likely does not understand yet. One that is in fact different from Isagi's. Speaking of which, Isagi finally made his return, and like he promised, he's come back to steal Bachira. A match to decide which monster will truly make his heart dance the most. Before the match could commence, Tokimitsu and Ayu rely on Bachira to bring the team together with his passes, which really does show the core value of Bachira. Rin is too busy being a tsundere to appreciate Bachira, and the four head out onto the field to come face to face with the team of Isagi, Burū, Nagi, and Chigiri. Everyone was getting acquainted, and Bachira's excitement was on display. Everyone had their matchup ready, and for Bachira, his challenge was up against Isagi. The game kicks off in chapter 72. With Bachira's enhanced dribbling skills, it would have never been easy to keep up with him usually, but Isagi not only had him scouted, but completely predicted, as Isagi uses Nagi and Burū to make the job of getting the ball much easier. So it seems like for the first time in the series, in my opinion, Isagi is able to compete with Bachira evenly. It declares Isagi the first winner of this game's matchups, and Bachira was purely impressed by the anti-combo they were able to create to get the ball from him, then further acknowledging the entire team has evolved in order to beat them, with a seamless chain of chemical reactions. The first goal was scored by Chigiri, and Bachira states the monster is rejoicing. The kickoff starts once again, and Bachira seemingly stepped it up a notch. To be more unpredictable as an easier method of getting past Isagi, he made a no-look pass to Ayu, all culminating into Rin's immaculate plays to achieve the first goal for his team. After another kickoff, Rin's team obtained the ball after Rin's inception, passing the ball and then commanding Bachira to bring the ball to the goal. Bachira obliges to it. He was currently making his talents worthwhile on a constant basis, sending the ball to Ayu to best utilize his heightened jumping ability, spawning Bachira's first chemical reaction between him and Ayu, and this was clearly getting Bachira and Isagi more pumped as the match continued forward. Bachira was showcasing how truly incredible he is in understanding the players around him. Even with some childish tendencies, he can still spark a chemical reaction within the top 3 current best BLUELOCK players. Isagi's team of course respond back with the chemical reaction Isagi and Nagi had developed during their climb back, and this only further thrilled Isagi, as he wanted to find a way of beating Rin on his own own. Bachira acknowledges that the two monsters on the field were soon to clash. Rin, now feeling the immense heat of the game, looks to take no survivors within the next kickoff. Rin's efforts led him to a goal-scoring opportunity, almost thwarted by Isagi. However, Rin foreseen Isagi's approach and made an unseen pass to Bachira, allowing Bachira to score his first ever goal in a second selection match, showcasing the puppeteer control of Itoshi Rin. It seems now Isagi's matchup focus has shifted to Rin from Bachira through this immense display of dominance. Of course, next Burū scores his goal with his irregular playstyle in which Rin could not predict. With the position change in the next kickoff, Chigiri is handling the task of putting the pressure on both Rin and Bachira when Isagi needs to retrieve the ball from him. Chigiri keeping his opponents on lock had proven to be a challenge for Bachira, but he found his way around him through his own technical skill. However, it was intentional as Isagi met Bachira's efforts. Bachira then somehow makes his way barely past Isagi, but it was pointless as the whole sequence turned out to be exactly to Isagi's plans, with Burū snatching the ball to devour Bachira. Isagi was aware he needed to play the bait as Bachira's passing options were held down by so many of them being on his tail. Rin was only just able to stop their engage, leading to both Isagi and Rin competing over who can control Burū to their benefit. Bachira was seemingly filled with joy. These two players were competing on levels in which he was completely infatuated towards. He wanted to keep playing. His feelings had been split between the two monsters, and now he didn't care who would win, as long as he was allowed to keep playing with either Rin or Isagi. But maybe these monsters were just too much for him to handle. At long last, he isn't alone playing football. However, to these two, Bachira didn't exist.
What? Did they just run right past me? It's weird. I'm not alone anymore. And yet, they live in their own world, where I don't exist. Why? Why are you playing soccer in a place that I can't reach? Don't leave me. I searched for so long and found the monsters I've been looking for. But do I mean anything to them? All this time, was I the one being tested?
With the game score being 4-3 for Rin's team, once again testing the ever-growing limits of Isagi's playmaking, Bachira confronts his own reasoning as to truly what he's playing football for, leading him to question, in order to catch up to Rin and Isagi, what is Bachira's true ego? Within the next chapter, the absence of Bachira was felt to me when writing the script. He got no time to demonstrate himself as a threat in the game, where he had been left behind by the monsters he had discovered. He got one word of speech in this entire chapter after Isagi found his own way of devouring Rin without the help from his teammates to score. Bachira in this game went from 100 to 0. He developed his teamwork and established himself to be a reliable component of passing and assisting with the top 3 skills. However, the further that Isagi and Rin adapt to each other's playstyles, the more that Bachira was being left in the dust, the more that he was realizing his inaction, his level of use, his own personal limitations, limits that had to be broken so he didn't feel alone again. The final kickoff was at play, and upon Bachira receiving the ball, his worries clouded his judgment. He couldn't assess what needed to be done in order to be acknowledged by Isagi and Rin. Chigiri took advantage of the distracted Bachira, and now Nagi gives him a reality check regarding his current situation.
So what's the deal? Are you losing on purpose? Maybe. You think if our team defeats yours, that we'll still end up choosing you. Honestly, we don't need you the way you are. I want to steal Rin. As for Isagi, he probably feels the same.
If we lose, I won't get chosen? That means I can't play soccer with either Isagi or Rin. No, you can't leave me behind. I don't want that. I won't let that happen!
His greatest fear is once again becoming a reality. He would be all alone if he didn't prove himself. A reality of Isagi winning would lead to Bachira not playing with either genius. He couldn't accept such a fate lying down, as his desperation showed through his change of eyes, in his tone, and his entire mentality. Since coming to BLUELOCK, I don't want to lose everything that I found here. I really would have been happy just being able to play football, with Isagi by my side. I don't want to lose the first friend I've ever made. I don't want to go back to those days of being alone. That's why Since when did I become afraid of being alone again? When did I start playing football to avoid being left behind by them? Without even realizing, I've been playing football in order to be wanted by someone. I've been seeking someone else's voice instead of mine. But what I should have been believing in wasn't someone else's voice. With the use of Isagi's passes, it all led to the supposed climax of the match. Isagi received the final ball from Nagi, and as Bachira reached out, desperate to not be left behind, begging for another chance, his pleas were heard.
It's all yours. You are the best. No lie. Finding my target window. It's not huge, but I can make it.
Wait for me, Isagi. One more time.
This is the end.
Give me another shot.
This isn't your victory. It's ours.
I'm begging you. One more chance.
Rin! Where did he come from?
Rin managed to save Isagi's attempt for a goal, and the loose ball lands directly to Bachira. In his last attempt, he makes his way upfield. In a drastic switch of approach, Bachira starts anxiously waving the monster away, but it keeps instinctually coming back for Bachira whenever he's playing, serving him as it did so many times. But now Bachira can't help but always look for it when it's on the pitch in order to guide him. Always relying on the very thing that kept him company when he was alone, the thing that kept him believing all this time which led him to BLUELOCK. If he continued to let his monster be his influence, he will never be able to catch up with Isagi and Rin. The monster is the limit that Bachira is seeking to break past. Chapter 84, Original Ego. Isagi is absolutely determined to defend like his life depends on it, since he needed to buy time for his team to regroup. Bachira, on the other hand, was struggling to shake the habit of seeking his monster. The monster was limiting Bachira's imagination and therefore becoming a burden to his talents. His monster was once the purpose to play, then meeting Isagi, he became the monster to dedicate his existence towards. Because of his monster, he became too overly reliant on Isagi, all the while Isagi himself is becoming more independent. Breaking the curse means Bachira can finally evolve, declaring that he won't pass to his monster anymore. Bachira's dribbling style immediately became more aggressive. He was taking the offensive efforts all by himself. The monster kept trying to interject, as it was a toxin looking to feed on Bachira's reliance more and more. It had got so strong with how long Bachira needed it, it now became his next obstacle. Isagi's team was surrounding the rogue Bachira as he was going in alone. Even with Rin in a more than optimal passing position, Bachira is hungry for his own innovation, his own desires, for his own independence. The feeling of playing without a monster made him want to resort back to the days where he never even knew his monster. Think back to how it used to be as a kid, with the only thing to truly matter was the excitement to play football. Even if Bachira doesn't have Isagi to fight alongside, he needed to dedicate himself to his own craft, his own version of football, to truly become a monster himself. He recites his farewells to his monster and to Isagi. Even if he had to dance alone, he knows that's what's best for him. What would be his catalyst into going back to his original ego? He is Meguru Bachira. But when nobody else foresaw such an outcome, Isagi followed along Bachira's pathway to meet him, where the new Meguru Bachira would be born.
Rebuilding my ego will set me free! Isagi.
I know you, Meguru Bachira! I knew in the end you'd choose to go it alone!
The monster of Meguru Bachira was one of solitude, discovery, fear, but most importantly, growth. Bachira, being someone who didn't get how other egoists develop their own egos, believed those who he sees as inspiring to be monsters. His journey culminated in discovering that he needed to become his own monster in order to realize his own path moving forward. His growth was held back by placing this monster as a separate entity to his own character. The monster became a guide, and in turn, also an inhibitor to Bachira's immense creative freedom of dribbling. So by combining the two together to become an amalgamation of sorts, he discovers his next step on his football journey. He's not only one of the best players within the BLUELOCK facility, but he is also one of the most important characters in the entire series, inspiring the growth of Isagi many times over, as Isagi learned the true values of what it meant to play football, with Bachira being his reliable partner even after the events of the second selection. How Bachira then evolved was actually instead learning to evolve with his monster and incorporate it into his playstyle. unlocking his own flow state known as Monster Trance. Whilst the story of Bachiras Monster has come to a halt during the NEL, since we have not seen him since the flashback of the Ubers game, Bachira has grown immensely since first starting in Blue Lock and is set up to be a player that Isagi once again has to surpass in terms of individual skill. I hope with this video you have developed or grown your level of appreciation towards Bachira and are just as excited to see him as me in the near future. If you want to see more of these Blue Lock analysis videos, then I would appreciate you subscribing. And also check out my analysis of Michael Kaiser that I'll leave a link to down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.